The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small, and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Film Foundations, the collaborative show between Weirding Way Media and Someone's Favorite Productions. I am your co-host, Chris Dashew from Weirding Way Media, but more specifically, the Culture Cast.
And I am Ryan Verrill from the Disconnected and Someone's Favorite Productions.
On this show, we ask and answer 4 questions around a given topic that is surrounding either an actor, franchise, microgenre, or in this episode's case, a director and a writer. And speaking of a director and a writer, on this episode, we are joined by Matt Campagna's better half. He has been on the show already once, but we are joined by his wife all the way from the great north of Canada. She is a filmmaker, actor, and writer and director, Melissa D'Agostino. There you go. Sorry, I fucked it up.
It's perfect.
I even asked you and I fucked it up. So there you go.
The apostrophe really messes with people. I get it. It's like, Do I stop? Do I not stop? I get it.
So before we get into the topic, first, welcome to the show. And secondly, for our listeners who may not have heard of you and your work, what keeps you busy up there in the Great White North of Canada?
Well, I make movies. I also make theater, so I'm doing a bit of both right now. I just am in the midst of releasing my debut feature film called Mother of All Shows that I directed a couple of years ago, starring the wonderful Wendy Malick, who you might know from Hot in Cleveland and so many great. Just Shoot Me, you got it. And Dream On, and she's amazing. And so that's coming out this year, and that's been a thrill. And then I've co-directed a couple of other features with my better half, Matt Campagna, and we're working on an animated film right now. And when I'm not doing that, I'm producing other people's movies or acting in projects, a little bit of everything. And
Highball TV as well, right?
Yeah, co-founder of Highball TV streaming service.
Yeah, I remember the pre-Highball TV days even. That was, God, because Ryan and I were looking through some of the old episodes on my show, and I want to say I spoke to Matt for the first time in like 2016. So,
yeah, I think so.
8 years? Yeah, long time.
It feels like so long.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it is really.
Oh no.
So, if you clicked on this episode, you know we're going to be talking about Nora Ephron, but you may not know why. So I'm going to kick it to you, Melissa. Why Nora Ephron? Of all the things you can pick and choose, why Nora Ephron?
She is a massive hero of mine. I am currently wearing my Nora Ephron t-shirt in homage to her. And I've read her books, I've seen her films, and her style of filmmaking and writing appeals to me so much and really has been a key part of how I approach making movies and telling stories.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the movies that she wrote and then some of the movies that she wrote and directed obviously are some very heavy hitters with a lot of really big names in them. So in a lot of ways, I mean, if you don't know who she is, her reputation kind of precedes her with stuff like When Harry Met Sally or Sleepless in Seattle or You've Got Mail, obviously, which I think are kind of like tenets of rom-coms, I think, in general, if not the best example of rom-coms for the genre as a whole.
Yeah, I would say so. And I think her coming from journalism and coming from being a writer, it informed so much of how she approached films. But she also was so interested in romance and in relationships and in New York City. And so, like, it's so foundational, the work she did in terms of how we look at modern romantic comedies and what we look at as the benchmark. And she was so influenced by classic romantic comedies that you can really see the line from those classic Hollywood movies through to her, through to, where we are now.
What about you, Ryan? What are your early experiences with Nora Ephron?
Obviously saw the classics early on. Sleepless in Seattle was a big one for me when I was young for some reason. Weird, but yes. The big thing I really want to throw out before we get into the discussion is because of what Melissa just said about the background of journalism and writing, there are more aspects to these characters than you get in most films. And so the romantic comedies feel like full-throated in a way that other films that have tried to tackle the genre just can't. No matter how hard they try, they're unable to stack up to some of these. And it's foundational in the way that if you just want the perfect example, this is the bar that has been set by many of these films. So yeah, these are incredible.
I have very little experience with these movies, not for any specific reason, not because I don't like rom-coms, far from it. It's just, I don't know, a specific kind of rom-com from a specific time kind of has never been something that anyone has pushed me to watch it's really pushed me to watch. That's kind of the way I exist now at this point in my film watching existence is I watch stuff I want to. And if someone's like, go watch this, I will be pushed in that direction. But yeah, not a lot of people pushing me in the direction of any of these. I've seen some of them, but the ones that I've seen, I have seen of my own accord, including 2 of which I saw in theaters. So, but none of I guess again, like that's the thing. When we get into the questions, we'll kind of talk about it, but I don't think my answers are the things that she's, quote, known for, unquote. And I'm sure that there will be, again, questions as to what that is overall. But yeah, Nora Ephron is someone that I personally do not have a lot of experience with, but I do have answers. I just don't have a lot of experience. So kind of like you've kind of already hinted at, Melissa, anything about Nora Ephron that's important to know in your opinion before we go any further into the questions?
Certainly, yeah, the journalism angle is a big one, but also that she mines from her own life deeply for her films. And she talks about the people and things that have happened to her. And this was the double-edged sword for her. It led to a lot of success for her, but it also cost her a lot. And people were quite hard on her for airing some of her, what they would call dirty laundry. But, she grew up with a mom, both of her parents were screenwriters, and her mom always said everything is copy. And she took her whole lifetime kind of unraveling and picking apart what that means. And her son made a great documentary about her called Everything is Copy. And they discuss, that concept of what it is to look at everything in your life as something you could make into a movie or a book and how that might affect the people around you. So she was also very much mentored by Mike Nichols. And so a lot of her sensibility comes from Mike Nichols and from Rob Reiner, who she obviously collaborated with on When Harry Met Sally. So she comes from, Hollywood stock. She's sort of a Nepo baby in her own right, and comes from a very interesting set of circumstances.
Well, and she's also, her spouses are very interesting as well. She was married to Carl Bernstein for a couple of years and then would be married to Nicholas Pileggi for the rest of her life, who, wrote with Scorsese, wrote the book that Goodfellas is based off of, but then wrote the script for Casino and Goodfellas. So, yeah, like you said, Nepo baby, but also in a way that's not, again, I think that term is what it is at this point, but she made good, at least, and contributed mightily. So, not every Nepo baby can say that.
truth. I don't use it in a derogatory way. I use it more as factually accurate.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just the reality. You can't do anything about it really, even if you wanted to. So
yeah, agree.
So let's just transition into the questions and kind of see where the conversation goes and what shakes out. So Melissa, what do you consider a foundational title for Nora Ephron?
Well, this is interesting because you said you may not pick obvious choices, and I don't know that I will either. And I have a two-pronged answer, which might be against these rules, but
not against the rules at all. I'm not even going to say we haven't done that because we have.
Okay, so
plenty of times.
Amazing. Then I'll fit right in. I'll say that from a standpoint of her as a writer, I'd say a foundational title is Heartburn, which is based on the book she wrote. So she wrote a novel about her breakup with Carl Bernstein, and then turned it into a movie that Mike Nichols directed. And I think if you want to know Nora Ephron as a writer, you watch Heartburn. And then I would say the flip side of that, as a writer-director, is actually Julie and Julia, which I don't think is one of her strongest films. But I think it is very autobiographical. It is very much about the relationship between Julia Child and Paul Childs is very much her relationship with Nick Pileggi. And she was making it while she was sick. And I think it is basically Nora Ephron's heart and head in a movie. And so I think those two are my, if you want to know what Nora Ephron's about, I think you watch those two movies. And I don't think they're necessarily her strongest and obviously not her most popular, but I think they tell you who Nora Ephron is.
Well, I think it's more important to not necessarily pick the most popular thing.
Cool.
And I think that obviously with what we're doing, that kind of lends itself in, I think, the direction we want to go. Interesting choices.
Yeah.
Ryan, Ryan, where do you come in on this? What are your thoughts on the choices so far?
I like them both. I think they are good choices. Glad that we are highlighting, especially Heartburn. That's one that doesn't get a lot of discussion nowadays. I feel like it gets overlooked for no reason. And, it's Jack Nicholson. That's something that
and Meryl Streep.
Well,
who we've already talked about.
That's why I said it like that. We just had a full episode on Meryl Streep. And so bringing up Jack Nicholson, we probably need a Jack Nicholson episode here eventually, but he's done 300 movies or whatever. So yeah, that'll be difficult.
What's your answer for this question, Ryan? What's your foundational pick here?
My foundational pick is the one that made me mostly interested in the way that she writes. And so mine is a little more mainstreamy than Melissa's picks, but I have to go with When Harry Met Sally. This was, trying to deconstruct this film. It really shows how perfect these characters are written from every single angle, because this is the kind of movie you get done with the film and somebody can prompt you with 5 different questions about the characters on what they would do in a certain situation. And you could probably answer because they've been turned into these almost real life people for you. The way that she's written these people, you can forecast their lives and their choices. And they're so 3-dimensional that the film hurts you. It brings you joy. It brings you all of these emotions because you are attached to, especially our 2 main leads, but with everybody, even some of the people that are only in a few of the scenes, you get glimpses into these full lives rather than just, some random sitcom where somebody knocks on the door and they walk in and we get a laugh and then they leave. And it's well, who were they? That doesn't mean anything. In her movies, it is this actual life. It is this very, very realistic feeling of somebody's entire life held on a platter for you simply to enjoy. But the big thing here, the collaboration with her and Rob Reiner, he was in the middle of one of the hottest streaks in films ever. But without her script, obviously, this never would have been able to be as great as this is. He's a great director, sure, but it's very clear based on what she did after this that, man, she carried the bulk of this film.
Yeah, they worked quite a bit on that script from their perspectives, of can men and women be friends? And they would sit down and talk it out. And I think it was such a magical pairing. And then you add into the mix Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, and Billy Crystal brought a lot out of that script as well and added so much of his own stuff. So that was such an alchemy there of the people involved for sure.
Oh boy, I need to see this movie. Clearly, I don't know what.
Have you never seen it?
No, I have not. I have not.
Worth it. Worth a watch.
Eat Billy Crystal too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would go even further to say I've seen like no Billy Crystal stuff either. So,
oh, so good. Forget Paris, City Slickers, Mr. Saturday Night. So many good ones. We could do a Billy Crystal episode.
Yeah, I was to say like yeah. Well, Billy Crystal kind of came up sideways with Francis Weber stuff because he's in Father's Day. It's what Billy Crystal and Robin Williams, and that's a remake of a Pierre Richard Gerard Depardieu film. So I have an answer for this one, but like I kind of already alluded to, and Ryan knows what the answer is because we did the Meryl Streep episode together. But mine is 2009's Julie and Julia. It's a great movie. I think, again, I alluded to it on the Meryl Streep episode. I think it's a fantastic Meryl Streep performance. But like you mentioned, Melissa, it's also kind of a story about Nora Ephron's life while talking about Julia Child's life, which is, I think that's the right way to do something like that, where you are drawing from your own life, but not necessarily putting yourself in it specifically.
Right.
So... And I enjoy, I mean, as someone who enjoys a lot of cooking and who cooks themselves, I liked that aspect of it. I think I like that that's the world that the movie takes place in. But yeah, I mean, it's such a well-written movie. And again, like you both have already mentioned, like the characters are fully realized in a way that when these kinds of movies are done right, that's why they resonate with people. And there are plenty of these kinds of movies that don't. I mean, how many Hallmark movies exist every year that are just, I mean, that exist to be very easy to digest, but that's because they're in the bulk. I mean, just bulk, easy to digest things. There's nothing wrong with it, but like you both alluded to with some of these other movies, there's more to chew on here, which is the intent of Nora Ephron, both as a writer and a director.
Yes, and I think her borrowing so much from her own life, even just being able to, as a writer, transmute her own experience into characters is such a big part of that. And I think, the interesting thing about Julie and Julia, which I always want to call, Matt and I always joke, because I always want to call it Julie versus Julia, Dawn of Cooking, which I think actually would have been a pretty fantastic film as well. But I think it's interesting because the Julie character is very unlikable in some ways. And I love that about it. And I love that Nora really did explore women who were a lot to sort of take. I mean, even in Sleepless in Seattle, she is pretty intense, the Meg Ryan character. And I like that. I like that the women in these stories are complicated and sometimes do things you really don't agree with and that, border on obsessive or problematic even. And and yet you are on their side because you can relate to what is motivating them to do that. And that to me is the skill of a writer and director who understands the depth of that.
Well, and like we've already also said, like it allows her to elevate. I mean, again, I don't think that it's not that rom-coms get a bad name, but because so many come out and they are so kind of a piece, once you're doing something a little bit more elevated, it does stand out immediately. And with something like When Harry Met Sally, or, I mean, there are a couple other ones on this list that, I mean, You've Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle. I mean, those are like what? Columns that hold the rom-com genre up at this point, right? They would be possible answers if we did I think it would be impossible to do a rom-com episode because that's way too broad. But they would be kicked around in terms of possible answers, if not answers, if we were to do a certain time span of rom-coms. I think one, if not some of or all of those might show up as possible answers. That's how kind of indelible her mark has been left on the genre as a whole.
Yeah,
but I guess the question I have as we go into the next question is, what is something lesser known that's not as foundational that someone might be, kind of already talked about, turned off by, because some of the characters are so well written, they tend to jump off the page, maybe more than some people are expecting. Second question, what is a lesser known or a deeper cut title from Nora Ephron's work that you might point someone to if they were looking for something in addition to Julia and Heartburn?
This was hard because I have two and they go in very different directions. But I would say one of the deep cuts that it took me a long time to get around to seeing is called This Is My Life, which was made in 92, I think, and stars Julie Kavner, who's the voice of Marge Simpson, famously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and has Gabby Hoffman in it, which is the first Gabby Hoffman appearance in a Nora Ephron, followed then by Sleepless in Seattle. But it's about a stand-up comedian, a woman who becomes a stand-up comedian in the late 80s, early 90s, and sort of abandons, for lack of a better term, she sort of goes off to launch her career, and her two daughters sort of get left behind. It's based on a book and written by Nora and Delia Ephron, who often collaborated. And it's such an interesting film. It's very, it's got two voiceover protagonists. It meanders a lot in terms of the narrative. So it's not, your, really well structured rom-com. It's not that at all, but it's such an interesting glimpse into that time for women and women in the industry and for mothers and daughters. It also has such a stacked cast. It's like Carrie Fisher's in it, Dan Aykroyd's in it, like Carolyn Aaron's in it. It's amazing. So I think it's really worth a watch. It's a very unique film. So if you're looking for something that gives you that female point of view, women in relationships, women in the industry, and that will give you that. And then if you haven't seen Silkwood, you must see Silkwood. She wrote Silkwood and Mike Nichols directed it. And I think it's an incredible film. I don't think it gets nearly the attention that it should. And that is more of the journalism side. So if you're interested in Nora Ephron as journalist, and writer and person who is very interested in the mechanism of journalism and in reporting and all of that, then I think Silkwood's your choice.
And it's a Meryl Streep movie. Once again.
Meryl's
showing up again. Good old, what's Meryl up to right now? Just being like in every other episode of the show now. Jeez.
Yeah. Well,
good Lord.
Good for her.
For good reason.
Right?
For good reason. Yeah. And Cher. Silkwood has Cher in an incredible performance that also, I think, does not get the attention that it deserves. I think Cher in general as an actor doesn't, but she's amazing in that film. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on these picks, Ryan? And where do you come in with yours?
Silkwood is great. It's been a long time. I need to revisit it. Is Silkwood the only Kurt Russell collaboration with anything Nora Ephron?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. He, I guess he took a little bit of a turn after that movie and started doing some different things. It's a good movie. Yeah, definitely a good choice. And the fact that it's her first one, there's something special, especially for good writers for their first film, because it's usually one that they have poured their life into for quite some time to make that first one right. And so usually that's got like something special about it that you can just feel sort of tangible. So yeah, that's a great choice. Mine is, we kind of already talked about the Goodfellas connection with the writer. I got to reach out to My Blue Heaven. This is my choice for this one. Because
nice.
I mean, you're sitting here with your spouse, you're both researching this same mobster, and you go through everything and you both write a movie that are two very different ends of the spectrum. And for those that haven't seen it, this one is primarily different, as you can tell by the cast. We've got Steve Martin and Rick Moranis headlining this one, with Joan Cusack bringing it up alongside. And this one's great. It's another film that's based on Henry Hill, and this one it's hilarious. It's kind of like a low key comedy based on what else was going what else was going on around that time in the 80s. It wasn't too, I don't know, it wasn't too slapsticky, it wasn't too in your face with the comedy. But again, pitch perfect writing. That is like across all of these films, you can follow that thread and you are drawn into every single person that you look at, because these scripts are so thought out and so well done in a perspective of, I want to make sure that this story is airtight, and it works perfectly. Chris, I'm sure you haven't seen My Blue Heaven. Have you seen that one?
Oh yeah, I have, because you essentially watch it right after you watch Goodfellas, because it essentially picks up where Goodfellas leaves off. It literally is like, this is what happened after he went to witness protection. The only thing that's different is they don't set it where it was actually set, which is Omaha, Nebraska, of all places, which is where Henry Hill actually ended up. Yeah, I mean, it's a great movie. It does kind of stand out as a, like, oh, it's not that it's weird, but it's like such a different thing than, everything we've mentioned up until this point, really. Other than the other things that you mentioned, Melissa, which are kind of also very different. But yeah, I enjoy it. Steve Martin's a bit much in the movie, I think, is kind of where, I like him, but he's like peak, maybe even like a little more than peak. And look, it's also like Rick Moranis right before he's like, because we're like, what, 2 or 3 years removed from him, like stepping away from the industry completely. So It's also a late Rick Moranis role, which, huge fan of Rick Moranis.
Same. Yeah.
Well,
how can you not be?
Yeah, right. Like it feels impossible to not be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good pick. My pick is, I think, interesting because I actually saw this movie in theaters. I saw Julie and Julia in theaters, but I also saw Bewitched in theaters, which is a fucking weird movie. Only because the premise is bizarre, and I think that for me, what drew me in was that the premise was so strange. So they're rebooting Bewitched in the movie, and Nicole Kidman, who's playing the character of, I forget the name of her character in the show, but the titular witch of the Bewitched is they cast a real witch by accident, is what it feels like. And so that's the entire premise of the movie, is what happened if they cast a real witch in the remake of Bewitched. And it's a weird movie. It has speaking of, we've kind of already alluded to movies that have lots of actors in it with stacked casts. This movie has Michael Caine. It has Nicole Kidman. It has Shirley MacLaine. It has Kristen Chenoweth. Steve Carell shows up for like a minute for a cup of coffee, essentially. Jason Schwartzman. There are a lot of people in this movie, and it came out in 2005, which next year will be 20 years.
What?
Which is really fucked. But I enjoyed it because it was a very atypical type of thing that I appreciate how different it is from what it could have been. And I think that is primarily because of Nora Ephron's involvement. Otherwise, it would have just been a straightforward remake of Bewitched. But I like that we're doing a remake of the show and we have a real witch. And Will Ferrell, for all of his problems as an actor and how much he kind of just plays himself now in things, there was a time where I was like, Will Ferrell could be kind of like a romantic leading man thing. Him and Nicole Kidman are cute in the movie together. It's not a pairing that you would think would work on the face of it necessarily, but they're really great in the movie, and I enjoy it a lot more than I think most people I don't even think most people remember it existing. It's kind of just, it exists. I haven't heard anybody talk about it in probably since it came out effectively.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it did not get received well, and then it just sort of disappeared. It also doesn't feel like a lot of people associate Nora Ephron with it because they associate her so much with the sort of romantic comedies we've spoken about up until this point, and that was a departure. I think it's fascinating in this current culture of like reboot culture we're in, where everything is getting remade, and so much of it is getting remade in a very formulaic, for lack of a better term,
legacy sequels.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's so refreshing to go back and watch that movie and be like, wow, they really swung for the, bets this year. They really went for it. And And I admire that a lot about her. She took really big risks.
It reminds me in a lot of ways, like not tonally, because I think the Brady Bunch movie is a lot funnier, and I think that's the intent, but it reminds me a lot of that, where it's like the expectations are being subverted constantly, because otherwise it wouldn't be a movie anybody would really have any interest in other than just pandering and nostalgia. Like, again, I can only imagine what an I Love Lucy movie would look like at this point. It would just be, unless it's a retelling of the real life story behind the people, which is what it ended up being. Speaking of Nicole Kidman, I mean, they wouldn't have done anything interesting. And anytime anybody did anything interesting, now that, like you've alluded to, Melissa, everything is just so samey. It is nice that there were choices being made like this long before we were tired of people doing this to begin with.
Yeah, I love going back to this time in cinema, like especially the 90s into the early 2000s. Like there's a lot of strange films that don't always come together, or they didn't really hit, but they're fascinating and really rich, and they spent a lot of money on things, and you could tell they did, and it was worth them spending that money, as opposed to today when I'm often like, sorry, why did your romantic comedy about stuntmen cost that much money? Like, that's not wise. That's not going to make that money back.
Are you referencing something specific here?
No, just a general comment.
No, never.
Yeah, just a general comments for me.
Are you telling me that they thought they were going to make a sequel to that movie, and then it's now on streaming less than a month after being out?
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Lord.
Yep. But I envy too a time when you could take big swings like that for that kind of money. And it feels like we aren't in those times anymore, unless you are studio making a terrible mistake. But if you're
right, I like how matter of fact you are, making a terrible mistake. Yeah, we tend to talk about them sometimes on this show. We're a lot nicer on this show than we might be other places about terrible mistakes that are made. It is wild to think that Bewitched was made for $85 million, which is kind of, I mean, even in 2005, that's a lot of money for a rom-com, but holy shit, looking at it now, it's like, what were you paying? Who did you pay 85? Was that like 70 to Nicole Kidman? Like,
that's a lot of cast, I'm sure.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
She gets the cast, like, wild to watch these movies and be like, everyone signed up to work with her. I mean, speaking of the Steve Martin, it's like, if you watch Mixed Nuts, which is truly wild, and Steve Martin, like Steve Martin and Nora Ephron as a combo, she brings out something in him that is over a line, like over the Steve Martin wacky line, which, he's quite wacky, as we all know. But the casts she got were incredible. I mean, these are some of the greatest ensembles of that time, where you can see all of these actors in the same movie. It's wild.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, people were clearly, her name preceded her reputation preceded her, so people wanted to work with her, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. It's funny. She talks about flops. If you read, I've read all of her books, her essay books, and a couple of books with interviews on her, and she talks about her flops. She talks very candidly about, having a hit and having a flop and the difference in how they feel. And, a lot of people in the industry talk about, you learn the most when you fail. When you fail is when you learn things, and your flops teach you something. And Nora Ephron is like, the only thing a flop teaches you is that it can happen again. Like, she's just like, I learned nothing from the failures other than I can fail again. And that's good to know. And to celebrate the hits when they come, because, they're like, they may not ever come again.
Right. Interesting. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective. I mean, again, that's a very different perspective to have on it, because I mean, so many people, myself included, like, I don't want to talk about my failures. Please don't force me to do that.
I know.
I'd rather talk about the successes. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, that's fair. So kind of transitioning and speaking of successes and failures and kind of how that shakes out. Third question, what is the biggest impact you feel Nora Ephron has had on pop culture as a whole?
This is such a hard question. I mean, obviously, I'll have what she's having as a tagline, although that is a Billy Crystal line said by Rob Reiner's mom in the movie. But I think the legacy, the biggest impact is that question about, can men and women be friends, and what is the relationship between men and women? The way that she explores that in her films, I think, has had a massive impact on pop culture. I think people still talk about that idea, that question all the time, and they bring up that movie. I worked on a reality show once as an editor about weddings, and we did these interviews with real life couples, and they were called When Harry Met Sally's. And they were basically shot the way that those interviews are shot in the movie. And so I think, the interrogation of women and men as friends and or lovers is absolutely undeniably something that she has given us. Meg Ryan's career, perhaps. She has given us, I mean, in large part, and women telling their stories from their personal lives very candidly. I know that myself and several of my other female filmmaker friends are very much inspired by her in that way. Her fearlessness. That's a lot. That's a lot of answers. Sorry. That's breaking my rules.
I mean, please, this is your opportunity to, as we say, wax poetically. So, any opportunity. I mean, I clearly, I mean, I'm very curious what Ryan's answer is, but I think, my answer, I don't think will be any, it will not be as eloquently put. Let's put it that way. So, Ryan, what's your answer? Because my answer is probably more or less just what Melissa said, but less eloquently put. Just more grunting probably on my end.
Amazing.
I'm glad you go to me, because I feel like it ties into what Melissa just said. The way I was going to say this is she had this uncanny ability to legitimize things. Rom-coms were not necessarily frowned upon, but they were in a down period before the mid 80s. They were things that there was a couple hits, but man, the rom-com heyday certainly hit around when she started hitting. And when it hit hard, and they were great for the next 20 or so years. We're kind of in another down period, I would say, at the moment, for great rom-coms. But yeah, she legitimized that. She legitimized, talking about, not even necessarily taboo things, but things that people just strayed away from in films for no reason. Like even the line that Melissa brought up, the I'm having what she's having, that would never happen in other films around that time before then. And that was like, oh wait, people are human and they have sex. Yes, we can talk about that. And then the actual like frank discussions where, I mean, not to just harp on it When Harry Met Sally, but I think it's the first one that kind of set this bar on especially on the rom-com side for her. But there are so many things where you expect everything to be harmonious in a lot of these films. And When Harry Met Sally is certainly not. There's a lot of misconceptions, people being misunderstanding each other, people just barely missing that moment of understanding what the other sex is thinking or feeling. And it's just life. Like, she captured something that allowed filmmakers to have the ability to be more realistic rather than just, I don't know, this fantasy world of everything's perfect when it comes to relationships, when it's clearly not. And if you want people to love your movies, that's so much more relatable when you write it in a Nora Ephron way, which most likely comes from the journalism side, because you're talking to real people. You're getting their experience and documenting that. And when you have that ability to do that properly in a script, you get literal masterpieces like she was able to pump out time and time again. And that so much of what you said it fits perfectly in line with that. She's just an incredible writer.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the journalism and her because she's an essayist as well, when you read her essays, there's such a relatability, and she's not afraid to reveal parts of herself and reveal, insecurities about aging. One of the really groundbreaking things was she talked a lot about, like, one of her books, which I have right here, is I Feel Bad About My Neck, which is basically like, I'm aging. Like, that's the name of the book. And she was able to say these things, but also make so much room for other people's experience of what was going on. And I feel like we don't often talk about the pathway from, like, essayist or novelist to screenwriter, or playwright to screenwriter, and how being able to write characters in this way and write even first person in this way is such a bridge to what you're talking about, Ryan. That kind of depth and relatability.
So my answer is a little bit, I guess, maybe on the nose, and you both have kind of already alluded to it. So, obviously in agreement with everything y'all have already said, but I think more specifically, as I like to jokingly say, I think Nora Ephron introduced the world at large to Meg Ryan, and I think, like you both have already kind of alluded to, I think possibly the best things Meg Ryan has ever done are Nora Ephron's films. When Harry Met Sally, You've Got Mail, and Sleepless in Seattle, correct? All three of those are Meg Ryan movies. Yes, her leading man is the same in two of them, and then Billy Crystal in one of them, but Meg Ryan is the same in all three. And so I think, obviously, all of the other really important stuff aside, elevating someone like Meg Ryan, who at the time was not known for rom-coms, to now that's what she's known for. I think still is known for. Maybe now she's more known as the woman who brought us Jack Quaid, which is also a good thing in a lot of ways. But I think just elevating someone like Meg Ryan and turning her into literally the person you go to for rom-coms for like 15 years. If you want a quirky female lead, Meg Ryan is your go-to. But when she works with Nora Ephron is when she's really elevated, clearly, into something more. And I think, like you both have already alluded to, it's interesting that a journalist is the one who brought us some of the most memorable, if not important, rom-coms of all times, because I think it speaks to this idea of understanding what motivates people and getting to that very easily because you're a journalist. That's part of your job as a journalist. So it's interesting that she's the one who ends up writing the kind of the rom-coms that set the gold standard for rom-coms. But at the same time, when you think about what she was doing for a living before writing scripts, she's just sitting and talking and listening to people and synthesizing it into something entertaining as it is. So, she's amazing, obviously.
Yeah, and I think, like, the beauty of Meg Ryan and Nora together was that because Meg had that quirky, clowny, aspect to herself, which now I think has gotten out of hand in terms of the way we represent women in these films, where they're kind of like, I don't know how to, and you're like,
Manic Pixie Dream Girls, maybe? Is that, yeah. Look at Ryan covering his face. We may or may not have done an episode on Manic Pixie Dream Girls, and I may or may not have said, I really don't like these movies.
I love how perfect that's going to fit on an audio podcast.
Yeah, you're not going to see that at all. I was drinking.
But the sound was perfect.
Okay, great, thank you. But yeah, that's sort of. She had that lovely, the sincerity of that. But she also, like, when Harry Met Sally, when she's talking about why she broke up with Joe, the guy that knew Harry and who they run into in the airport. And she's telling it's like a beautiful monologue about how they thought, they didn't want kids and they would have this life, and then they don't have this life, and they realized that they weren't in the kind of relationship they wanted to be in. It's so grounded and it's so beautiful and it's really painful. And what she was able to bring out in Meg Ryan, was the swing of that, how Meg Ryan had all of that depth, but also the charm and the clown sensibility to be funny and sing terribly to out of karaoke machine in that movie, which is really one of the funniest scenes for me, when she's trying to sing in the sharper image. I know, Chris, you don't know what I'm talking about, but you will. I
was like, I don't yet. I wonder when and if we do a Meg Ryan episode, if the answers will be like essentially all Nora Ephron stuff as well, because I'm sure someone will want to do it. But I think it's like, that is When Harry Met Sally going to be the foundational title for Meg Ryan? I think it might be, if it isn't the obvious answer. So
I feel bad for Meg Ryan because she's sort of been, as Hollywood does, just sort of got pigeonholed. And she did really try to break out. She tried to make that movie. She made that movie with Andy Garcia about being an addict. I remember that movie. But she could never really get out of that perception. She's also in Nora Ephron adjacent movie, Hanging Up, which is about Nora and Delia and their sister, and directed by Diane Keaton, which is fascinating. So
I was going to say, speaking of Diane Keaton, we may be on our final question have a transition into a Diane Keaton thing. But before we go to the final question, as we tend to do, Melissa, anything else from Nora Ephron's body of work worth mentioning before we transition to the final question?
Anything else worth mentioning? Yeah, I would say we've mentioned You've Got Mail a few times, but I wouldn't overlook You've Got Mail as a really interesting piece, because it's a piece about romance, yes, and about the dawn of the internet and AOL messaging.
Boy, what a specific title for a movie,
right? But it's also about the capitalism, and in its way, it's a very somewhat naive but charming look at, like, hey, maybe the big bad isn't going to come for all the little stores, and there's stuff in there. I don't know how, sadly, as time has passed on, I'm not sure. I think it looks a little naive in hindsight, but it's nice to go back to that feeling.
How pastoral a film like that truly feels.
Indeed.
I'm a little disappointed nobody's mentioned the film that I was hoping to get more information without having to watch. Michael, a film where John Travolta plays an angel. Ryan's face alone.
Here's the thing. I really love about angels. That was actually a thing I was going to suggest, because I have a thing about movies about angels. But I find Michael, and I love William Hurt, and I love Robert Pastrelli, and I love Gene Smart. There's a lot of great people in that movie. I find Michael perplexing. I find it one of the harder ones to advocate for. I don't know, Ryan. What is your experience?
I remember cringing to this movie entirely because it feels so awkward to watch. I don't know. Something about John Travolta in this is just off-putting in a very weird way.
I just remember the trailer for the movie. God. I all I remember is the trailer. That's it. And I just remember the trailer coming off as like bizarre and kind of insufferable.
The tone is very strange. I feel like it's
Yeah.
similar to Mixed Nuts. Like I think Mixed Nuts I enjoy more, but I think the tone in both of those movies is like, where are we? I'm not sure, and I don't know that it really came together in the end tonally for either of those films.
Well, that was the only one I was interested in learning more about, and they're having to go and watch it. So,
Sleepless in Seattle got skipped over a lot tonight. Also want to say
Oh, good.
that movie's great. We didn't go into a lot of detail, but this is, I think, the second pairing of Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. And this one, I mean, the Joe versus the Volcano is decent, but Sleepless in Seattle, well, it's this first with Nora Ephron, but I think
That's right.
second.
Yeah, second together. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Joe versus the Volcano is good, and it's a classic Tom Hanks, but it's more of a Tom Hanks film than a Meg Ryan film. This really shows both of them. Like, again, it's Nora Ephron. Both of these characters are well-rounded, perfectly written, and it's a super touching story, but kind of similar to You've Got Mail, very of its time, not something that is realistic again, probably not something that's going to happen. It's a very different world than it was back then, but it's a great movie, and honestly, just super cute. It's a really good story.
I love Sleepless in Seattle. I also really love Bill Pullman in Sleepless in Seattle. I feel like it's an underrated Bill Pullman performance.
Billy Pulley, come on, who doesn't love Bill Pullman?
Love Bill Pullman. Yeah, we at our with our staff at Highball, we do these like matchups with actors, and we do like different, like Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks, and then we did Bill Pullman and Bill Paxton, and then you have to like choose which one. It was very contentious, but I pulled very hard for Bill Pullman because
there are a few actors that I love more than Bill Pullman.
There you go. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I love that he. Have you seen the documentary where he talks about how much he loves eating fresh fruit? That's a real thing. It's a real thing. I think it's called The Fruit Hunters, and it also revealed that I believe something happened to Bill Pullman at one point in his life. I think it was when he was in his early 20s. He lost his sense of smell completely. Mm-hmm. Like since he was like in his early 20s, which sounds fucking awful. Just like one of the worst things, because your sense of smell affects a lot of things. But he talks about it in this documentary, and he's like, I love eating fresh fruit because it's one of the few things I can taste because it's so strong tasting. I'm not making this up. It might sound fake, like with some sort of weird monologue I pull out of my back pocket here, but it is a real thing.
I'm gonna look that up for sure. I love Bill Pullman.
But it's like, Bill Pullman's great. There's a rom-com that he's in with
While You Were Sleeping?
Sandra Bullock, right?
One of the best rom-coms out there. Highly recommend. Also a great Christmas movie. It's like one of those Christmas adjacent movies that I highly recommend. I will say there's a great anecdote, and the thing I respect about Nora Ephron so much from Sleepless in Seattle that Tom Hanks says in that documentary about her that her son made. And she had come on board. There was supposed to be a different director attached to that film. And then I think then Tom Hanks got attached. That director left, and she came on board. She did a rewrite of the script, and then they cast it and they started filming. And they were a couple of days into filming, and the kid that they had cast to play his son, auditioned very well. And then on set, I think he was really starstruck with Tom Hanks or something. And he just wasn't connecting. And so Nora Ephron went up to Tom Hanks on set and said, listen, don't worry. I see what's happening. We're taking care of it. There'll be a new kid next week. And Tom Hanks was like, oh, you're just going to go fire this kid? She was like, yeah, he's not working. We're just going to go fire this kid. And Tom Hanks was like mortified for the child and felt so bad. And Nora was like, no, we can't. The whole movie hinges upon this relationship between you and your son. This kid's out, and I love that story, and the kid, and Tom Hanks and his son in that movie are so great. And she was right. If it hadn't have been, that connection hadn't been there, you can't buy into that movie.
I like that though.
Cutthroat, like how
matter of fact. Yeah.
Yes. I'm a
No
fan.
That original kid, Corey Haim. No, I'm just kidding.
No. In keeping with being recast and things, that original child was somehow also Eric Stoltz.
Yes.
They took it away from me twice.
We have footage of the first 75% of the movie with him still.
Yeah, right. Let's just go reshoot the
Serious.
goddamn thing.
He's doing this really serious take, and it's not really working, and so they're like, "No, no thanks."
So to bring this home, Melissa, the last question is who or what would be a cinematic bridge to Nora Ephron? So if someone is a fan of something else, whatever this thing is, they might also enjoy Nora Ephron. So where do you come in on this question? I'm very curious what our answers are going to be here, and if any of them are the same.
Yeah, this one's also it's also very tough for me. I can't give you one answer. This is the story of my life. People are like, "What's your favorite actor?" I'm like, "I'll give you 10."
That's the right answer, though, to be fair. It's like, you're asking the wrong person this question if you want an easy answer.
I will say that if you like adaptations, this is very like esoteric, but if you're a fan of adaptations, almost everything that she has made is an adaptation or includes the idea of an adaptation in it. So most of her films are based on books, like Julie and Julia, like This Is My Life. But then, You've Got Mail is a remake of Shop Around the Corner. Sleepless in Seattle uses An Affair to Remember as connective tissue. And so if you're a person, and I am this kind of person, so I guess this is why I chose this, but who likes when a movie has other peripheral pieces of content, whether that's, a story or if another film or music, there's something about because what it means is you can go down, you can get deeper and deeper into it. For instance, 2 Christmases ago, Matt and I did 2 double features where we watched Affair to Remember followed by Sleepless in Seattle, and then we watched Shop Around the Corner followed by You've Got Mail. And there's something so lovely about watching those classic films, those older Hollywood films, and then watching these modern adaptations. So I think if you're someone who likes adapted material, and honestly, if you're a person who likes food, Nora Ephron loved food, and every one of her movies has sort of iconic moments around food. Obviously, Julia and Julia, but also, Sleepless in Seattle. We've mentioned that scene before. There are so many moments in her films where food and New York City, food and New York City as this unit are featured. Because she loved food and she loved New York City, and they really had her heart. And if you read any of her essays, she talks about both of those things a lot. And I think she has defined sort of how we look at New York City in a lot of ways on film, from that time. There's obviously other people, Woody Allen and such, who have also obviously contributed to that aesthetic, but certainly Nora is one of those people.
Yeah, When Harry Met Sally, that the line it's known for, is in Katz's Deli.
That's right.
People go to Katz's Deli for that alone, obviously. Yep. So yeah. And actually, Julie and Julia, it came out 4 years too early because it was just right at the cusp of the food, mainstream glomming on finally, thankfully, to giving a shit about what we eat and not just it was just bullshit. And Julie and Julia was right at the cusp of that trend finally, thankfully taking off. Imagine if it had been made in 2015. It would have been people would have been lining up for that because again, Ryan, what's your answer on this one?
This may have been one of the most difficult ones for me yet for any of our episodes. Because Nora Ephron is singular. She is somebody that there's not really an easy way to compare her to someone else like this. And so I was sitting here going, do Do you go down the rom-com route and think of somebody else that's okay at writing rom-coms? Do you go down somebody that writes good characters? And then the thing that I realized kept popping up in my mind is there's one other writer alongside Nora Ephron for me that I can tell from a mile away that they are the ones that wrote the film. It's somebody that also started directing films late into their career. We happened to allude to one of their films earlier in this episode, one of their, well, probably their worst film. I'm going to say, if you happen to like Aaron Sorkin, and that worst film I was talking about is the Ricardos, or Being the Ricardos, or whatever it's called.
Nicole Kidman starring as Lucille Ball. Yeah.
Aaron Sorkin is a writer that is incredible at doing dialogue and characters the right way. Now, a lot of these films are not rom-coms. Some of them are. There's a couple, but the way that he writes these characters, I would honestly compare a little bit to the way that we got some of these iconic characters from Nora Ephron. Aaron Sorkin is great with interactions. That's probably the best thing. His dialogue and his ability to write dialogue in a realistic way, which is a talent that a lot of writers do not have. A lot of times the dialogue comes across as robotic or contrived beyond belief, but something about Nora Ephron and Aaron Sorkin, the way that their characters respond to things said to them, you go, oh yeah, I could see like why somebody in that situation would say that. It makes sense. I'm all in. I love this movie. Let's go. So yeah, I would say if you like Aaron Sorkin films, you might find a bridge into Nora Ephron because the characters that he writes, the interactions are similar in a unique way to Nora Ephron.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Nice answer.
I like it.
So,
Wait, with
yes,
anticipation.
with bated breath.
Indeed.
So it's funny, Ryan, you and Melissa, you've both kind of mentioned the singular nature of Nora Ephron. And Ryan, you just alluded to the idea of like, how could one compare Nora Ephron to anyone because she is so singular in what she does? So I think less than comparing, but more pointing out another singular talent. And again, one that writer, director, for the most part, I think exclusively. And also, I think the thing that definitely is kind of the bridge is, like you mentioned right at the top, Melissa, everything is copy. Everything is fair game. I think this person might even say, like, now my life has become my movies and my life is stranger than the movies I write, which are strange in and of themselves. Now, again, this person's name may cause some people to recoil, which is unfair. And as what we do for a living is talking about film and the people who make them. Films are made by human beings. So just remember, I would say if you're a fan of Woody Allen, it would be a pretty obvious choice to say Nora Ephron might be in your wheelhouse. They were maybe not best friends, but they were friends. They knew one another. They worked together. Nora Ephron was in the only movies she acted in were Woody Allen movies, I believe. And I mean, he is a singular talent. His personal life and everything else is not what we're talking about here. But again, his personal life has kind of become as insane and strange as the movies and the situations he puts the characters of himself in his films. So it's kind of like your life is imitating art, but Woody Allen's films are all written very specifically like Woody Allen because he's the one writing them, and it's a Woody Allen movie when you watch it. There's very little doubt in your mind if you sit down to watch a Woody Allen movie. You kind of know what you're going to get for the most part. You may not know exactly how it's going to be presented, but well-written characters, well-written dialogue, believable three-dimensional characters. And I mean, again, we pretty much said the same thing about Nora Ephron. So it felt like kind of not necessarily an obvious choice, but again, if we're talking singular talents, they're kind of in the same ballpark, I feel like.
Yeah, and, New York sensibility and the way New Yorkers talk and relationships between men and women. And for sure, there's lots of connective tissue there. I would agree. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I know he's not a popular topic, but, at the end of the day, he's made a lot of movies. He's made a lot of really great movies. And he's made one of my favorite movies, which is Annie Hall, which is a romantic comedy. And Annie Hall is the movies that Nora Ephron was making are in that same vein of like, let's have a serious conversation about relationships. I mean, one of my favorite rom-com / relationship movies, the reason I like it so much is because it's written genuinely, which is Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which is, it feels like it needs to be mentioned here because I think it owes a lot to Nora Ephron as well in terms of just writing a serious relationship honestly and being honest about the way relationships fall apart.
Oh yeah, I would say Jason Segel is definitely was sort of next in line in the rom-com space to do really interesting ones like Forgetting Sarah Marshall. 5-Year Engagement, I think, is really underrated with Emily Blunt. And I think similarly, like you were saying earlier, Ryan, like complicated relationships, not clear, and really vulnerable, people being really vulnerable. And I think that's bang on in terms of Jason Segel as he started making romantic comedies for sure.
Yeah. And again, being honest with your audience, I appreciate. And that's, again, I mean, you can watch a dime a dozen rom-coms out there that they end up together in the end, but I'm not necessarily sure I want to see that. I think I'd rather have a dose of reality. And sometimes reality is needed to kind of cleanse the palate.
And sometimes I like when even if they do end up together, that it's not easy or it's not then perfect. They're together, but it's not this perfection. They're going to have issues moving forward, but they've decided by the end of the film that they want to go through those things together. And that is far more satisfying to me than, oh, these people are perfect for each other and they just had to figure that out and now everything's going to be great, because that's absurd.
That is not how life works.
That's fantasy film,
Yeah.
That's not a romantic comedy.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I think we've really kind of danced around it, but like the grounded nature with which Nora Ephron writes is, it's important. And I think it's, again, in a genre like rom-coms that are full of just, I don't know, puerile ways of thinking about the reality of things. I mean, I'm not saying everything needs to be serious and, maudlin, but it would be nice if people were honest from time to time about these kinds of things. And Nora Ephron feels like she wants to have an honest conversation, which I appreciate. Because like you alluded to, Melissa, staying together is often not only the hardest thing to do, but it is the harder of the two choices. And Nora Ephron's movies and things that she talks about in her essays and stuff clearly get to the fact of like life is not easy, it is messy, and that can be entertaining in and of itself, I guess.
Yeah, and the duality of love and of relationships, that there is the wacky, fun, silly side of things, and there's the difficult truth of day-to-day life and of being with somebody and knowing them that intimately. I think what Nora really understands is to know somebody that intimately is both the most rewarding thing that could happen, but also the most challenging thing to live with somebody and to show yourself, to show those intimate sides of yourself is so difficult. And she is able in those films to really show the balance of that. I think that's why When Harry Met Sally is such a check mark for people when it comes to rom-coms, because it really does explore the pendulum of that, of like, this is the greatest thing and this is the hardest thing at the same time, and that's life, and isn't that wonderful,
Yeah.
Says like Chris needs to watch it.
Yeah, boy. Jesus.
I know my hard sell just gets harder as
I feel personally attacked at this point. Like, sounds like you need to watch it, Chris, huh? I'm like, yeah, you're probably right.
If you're a fan of Harry Connick Jr. or jazz music of any kind, you will also like Nora Ephron movies. And I want to say that because, again, as a fan of that kind of music, she really she created a genre in and of itself there, I think, of the romantic comedy with like gentle contemporary jazz. That's what I'll say.
Harry Connick Jr.
I love him.
I love that. That's a brand new genre.
Yeah,
rom-com with contemporary jazz.
Contemporary jazz. That's right, contemporary. The contemporary that makes it new.
I can only think of Harry Connick Jr. in Independence Day, which is a me problem, not a you guys problem. So
I think he'd be happy with that. I don't think he'd have a problem with that.
Highest profile thing he's done for some people, sure. So
That's true.
before we round out the episode and go to plugging the things that we work on, anything else we want to say about Nora Ephron?
Thank you. I want to say thank you about Nora Ephron. I want to say thanks to you for giving me an opportunity to talk about her. Because I love her so much, and I want to say that I hope she continues to get her due. I think she was a director, same as I think like Penny Marshall and Nancy Meyers, and there's a whole group of directors of women at that time who were making blockbuster movies and excellent movies. Penelope Spheris, like I think there's just they get overlooked a lot because of when they were making movies, and they weren't auteurs in the way that we often we hold up people like Scorsese or Tarantino or people where we're like, it's this dude and he's making the movie and it's him, which also isn't true most of the time. But that's how.
Fuck yeah.
Of it.
Yeah.
That I think, like, I hope that this generation of women filmmakers, I mean, Nancy Meyers is still making cool movies, but I think that I hope that, us talking about them and encouraging people to look even into the catalog, into the deeper cuts, means that they become more a part of cinema history when we talk about it.
Nancy Meyers showed up on our Meryl Streep episode because I'm pretty sure one of my answers was it's complicated. So
God, it's complicated. Yes.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Yeah, I love Nancy Meyers.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, the fact that Nancy Meyers didn't come up until right as we're about to be done with the episode is surprising. More than anything else. No, this has been a fun episode, and yeah, I guess now I finally have to watch When Harry Met Sally.
You do you, but it's
you do, yeah. I've been doing me my whole life up until this point, so.
And it wasn't enough.
I didn't. Yeah. I mean, again, I got all the way to this point in my life without seeing it. So it wasn't enough. Nothing was enough at this point. I've been to Katz's Deli too, on top of everything else. It's like, you would have thought like, oh, you've been there. Now go watch the movie that's set there, at least for one of these scenes. So nope. So I don't know. I got some weird blind spots as they were with cinema. So.
Oh, me too. Huge. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
There's still only so much time, and there are so many movies. So
yeah. That's the
point of the show.
Yeah, right. That is the point of the show, is just to make our respective lists longer of things we need to watch. That's the way it feels. So Melissa, when you're not here talking to us or doing, other podcasting or stuff like that, what keeps you busy? Where can people find the things that you work on? All those good opportunities to talk about yourself again.
Great. Thank you. So as I mentioned before, we co-founded, my husband and I co-founded a streaming service called Highball TV. That's available worldwide. And so we have a catalog in the US as well as Canada, where we come from and built the company. And my film, Mother of All Shows, I'm not sure where it will be out yet. It definitely is on iTunes and like Google Play. You can rent, you can buy as of July 2024. So look out for that with Wendy Malick. It's a musical. It's a mother-daughter story. I'd like to think that Nora Ephron might be into it. It's my hope. And it's certainly a lot of it. There's actually a line in it from When Harry Met Sally that I slipped in that I say. It's a Carrie Fisher line, but I threw it in there as an homage to Nora Ephron.
See, there you go.
Yeah, you can catch me on Highball TV, and look for my projects on all the places that you VOD movies.
How about you, Ryan?
You can look up the company, Someone's Favorite Productions. You can find all kinds of podcasts that we produce. You can find the magazine that we produce. You can find the physical media releases that we do special features on. We would love to try to get you to watch some of those. So, give it a look.
And as for me, weirdingwaymedia.com is where you can find all the things that I work on, which were Lots of episodes with Matt at one point, many moons ago. I do remember Matt making an impassioned plea for Ghostbusters 2016. Matt has always had opinions that I might not agree with, but I love that he is as impassioned making them as anything else, which, it's a good thing. So
yeah,
you must like him for a reason. So
it's true. And his passion for wildly controversial opinions that very few other people hold is one of the reasons that I like that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said. Yeah. There's something to be said for a provocateur. So, but you can find everything that I work on over at weirdingwaymedia.com. As for this show, like, rate, and review it on iTunes, smash, punch, whatever the like button. Maybe don't be aggressive with the like button. Hit the like button. Don't even hit it. Click on it. It doesn't deserve your hate. It doesn't. Everybody else is so aggressive. We don't need to be part of that, like, weird aggressiveness with the like button. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. This has been great.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
And as always, we hope that you continue to travel down film roads and tangents, and that maybe you let us be your guide.